What's going on, friends? Logan Myerz here for Cinephellas.com to talk about the brand new show that just premiered on HBO on Sunday. I'm talking about Stephen King's The Outsider. I want to start off by saying this is a book by Stephen King, one of his newer books, and it's highly praised. A lot of people have been reading this, talking about it. I have not read the book yet, but after watching the show, I definitely going to make some time to read this. But The Outsider, the setup is 10 episodes on HBO. We have Ben Mendelsohn and Jason Bateman starring in the show. So the first episode is titled Fish in a Barrel. The setup is we see a young boy that's murdered. He's found dead. We have Ben Mendelsohn's character, Ralph Anderson. He's investigating this crime. What exactly happened to this kid? Who would do such a terrible thing to a young kid? And then it goes into him interviewing a lot of people in town, finding out what exactly happened to this kid in the last, few hours of his life. And it sets up Jason Bateman's character. He plays Terry Maitland. He's a lovable guy. He's a family man. He's a baseball coach. It sets up a lot of great dialogue in the first part of the episode. The people attached to the show, there's a lot of great people working on The Outsider. The writer wrote The Wire, one of the greatest shows on HBO, and he wrote The Night Of, which was on HBO as well. Really fantastic series. And the editor of the show, we had the guy that worked on True Detective and Narcos, so they've really got a great ensemble. And Jason Bateman directed the first episode, the pilot episode, Fish in a Barrel, and he directs another episode in the series. So there's a lot of great people attached to this. It really has a great vibe, like True Detective meets Narcos meets The Night Of meets Ozark. Like, it just really gritty, dark feel about it, and the tone of the show and the pacing is really fantastic. So the setup of Terry Maitland's character, played by Jason Bateman, as an audience you're thinking, like, a guy like this couldn't pull this off, or could he? So it sets up Ben Mendelsohn's character interviewing a lot of people and pointing Terry Maitland to the murder of this kid, because people in the town saw Terry pick up the kid in his van, picked up his bike. A young girl saw Terry leaving the woods, and he had blood all over his mouth and coat, like a bloody nose or anything, like he says in the show. It's something like he got into a fight or killed somebody. It also sets up a lot of other great aspects in this episode where Terry, it looks like he was it, like he was the killer. They show up at the baseball game and they arrest Terry. They make a big ordeal out of it and embarrass Terry in front of everybody in the town, everybody he's known like 20 years or more, being a baseball coach, just being a person in the town that's really gained relationships and friendships with people, and they really embarrass him. And his life is pretty much over because everybody is thinking that this guy is the child murderer, which then sets up the rest of the episode, which is really fantastic. Kind of going back and forth between Ben Mendelsohn's character and Jason Bateman. Jason Bateman being arrested, he's locked up and not really sure what to do, so he has to call his lawyer, because that's what you do in situations like this, is you always lawyer up, kids. You always get a lawyer. Never talk to the cops. Not fending for murderers or anything, but if you're in the court system or if you're in jail, you always get a lawyer, because they know what they're doing and you probably don't.
If you're injured in a crash and you're feeling the pain, call the law firm that makes it rain.
So with Ralph investigating this crime and really convinced that Terry pulled this off, Terry's the one that killed this young kid. What was his motive? Why would he do such a terrible thing to a young kid that he coached for? And it really sets up some really great scenes in this episode. The editing is really, really good. And again, with the pacing, it just really works. It's so full of suspense. And you're not really sure what's going to happen. You're trying to figure out who the killer is. And as the story unravels, you kind of really change your mind. I did, at least, because we found out later in the episode that Terry couldn't have killed this young kid because he wasn't even in town when this murder happened. He was at this conference in another town. So the cops go through the footage and find that Terry was indeed at this conference. He showed up at a strip club, which is really weird, and he had blood all over his coat, and he goes to the bathroom to change, and he takes a cab to the train station. So, obviously this is all documented with a cab. Making the phone call, him showing up at the train station, there's cameras. Terry is absolutely fucking with the cops, and what's really interesting about that, when he's at the train station, he looks exactly at the camera because he knows the cops are going to look at it. So that sets up a lot of really great questions and trying to figure out what exactly happened. How could he be at two places at once? And that really brings in all the Stephen King elements, because we see a little glimpse of this guy outside of Terry's house. It was in a hood. It was really creepy looking. They didn't really focus on the face, but it was kind of from a distance, and it just looked really unsettling. And seeing this other entity with a hood on, it definitely has to do with Terry and the murder for sure. But I'm really, I have a lot of questions. I have my theories what exactly that is, but I'll get into that later. But overall, I had a really great time in the pilot episode of The Outsider, Fish in a Barrel. Really great performances. Ben Mendelsohn, one of my favorite actors. He's such a great villain, but this time around he plays a cop. And Ralph is set in his ways that Terry is indeed the killer, even though Terry does have an alibi. He was at this conference. There's footage of it. The whole entire night, him going to that conference, so he definitely couldn't have pulled it off. It's really interesting how they're going to dive into the story and how everything's going to play out, and we're going to find out who the actual killer is, hopefully, at the end of the season. So it's really got my interest. I love the first episode. The overall tone, atmosphere, music, editing was really well done. Reminded me much of like True Detective meets Narcos meets The Night Of, and it really has an eerie and unsettling vibe to it, and I'm not really sure what's going to happen. I'm really intrigued, and I can't wait to watch the second episode and the remainder of the season. There's 10 episodes of The Outsider, airs every Sunday on HBO. So overall, I'm going to give the pilot episode The Outsider on HBO a 4.5 out of 5 Ben Mendelsohn head pieces. So what did you guys think of the first episode of The Outsider? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Have you guys read the book by Stephen King? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe. This is Logan Myerz signing out from sweet Southern Georgia. Until the next video review. Cheers!